This podcast is sponsored in part by Benjamin Hart.
That's me.
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC.
IPC.
IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you.
Hey.
Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast. And I'm just now realizing I should have freaking combed my hair, but yeah, that's the way it goes here on the video version of this podcast. I'm normally just sitting down and thinking about, how I sound. This is a whole new world. Here we are, and we're glad that each and every one of you could join us tonight, because we have an extra special episode for you guys tonight, something that I have been wanting to talk about for a very long time. And thankfully, someone came along and said, hey, I'll talk about that with you. So, let's do it right now. And coming back, you know him from the Star Wars Culture podcast. He's a producer. He hosts sometimes. It's great to have you back. Chad, thank you so much for joining us.
What is up, Ben? It is nice to be on the same side of the camera you are, Ben, instead of just staring as you do these on the Star Wars Underworld.
Right. Yeah, you're the guy, and for those who don't know, Star Wars Underworld podcast, Chad's the guy that does it all behind the scenes, that does the graphics, everything like that, so we don't have to worry about it. But it is nice to talk to you like on the same footing every once in a while, Chad, and not have you just lurking in the background.
Just watching like Sean is right now.
Right. So it's seriously, it's great to have you back. Obviously, Zach Arnold cannot be with us this week. He's still busy. He's still hustling. He just got finished with a football game, I think, just a few minutes ago. I just talked to him. He's doing great, but he's got a lot going on, and we miss him still. But the show must go on, as they say. So here we are. And Chad,
yes.
I was going to say proposition to you. That's not a good thing to say. No. I offered you a chance. I said, hey, I want you to get you back on the show, because you were on a few months ago. And I said, hey, let's get you back on the show. Let's get you on for a proper DC themed episode.
Yes. Go ahead. I had a few ideas that was going through my head on what I wanted to do. There was a couple, I was going to pick an animated movie, but I couldn't choose which animated movie that I wanted to watch, because I like them all, pretty much all of them. There's some of them that I didn't like. I was like, oh, I'll pick one with the I'll do where I have the comic, and then I'll read the comic and then watch the movie, and then compare and contrast between the two. And I was like, that's a lot of work. I already do a whole bunch for other work with other podcasts all during the week, and I'm like, we're just gonna watch something. And I was like, ooh, I'm watching Superman and Lois. I know Ben talked about it one time, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, so we're talking about SNL this week. No, not that SNL, the better SNL. Superman and Lois. It's a show that I've talked about off and on for a long time, ever since it came out, and I was like, you need to watch this show, and Zach didn't listen to me. All right, so while he's away,
I listened. Yeah,
I figured why not get someone who has heard the gospel of Superman and Lois, and it's funny because we were actually going to do the show last week, and then you said, I've got some stuff going on, I can't make it. You can't make it work. You can't watch the full series. Yeah, and you're like, well, let's just pick something else. I'm like, no, you hyped me up with Superman and Lois. You told me we'd talk about Superman and Lois. We're doing it, all right, even if we have to push the show back a week. So here we are. That's what we did.
To be fair, your computer was also still in the shop last week too, and
that's true.
Didn't want to do it on your phone you do the Star Wars Underworld show.
Right, you're right. And for those who don't know, while we were on break, it was a whole saga with my computer. It's back now. It's alive. The zombie. It's survived. So now I'm back to normal. I've been doing the Star Wars Untitled podcast. You may have noticed a drop in quality in my my appearance and my sound on that show. So thankfully, that will not be the case from here in future. And for IPC, we're back to normal. It's like nothing happened. So that's always good. But
they don't know the difference.
They don't. Okay, so Superman and Lois. For those who don't know, it is the newest show from the CW universe. Obviously, they had the big Crisis on Infinite Earths thing. They introduced Tyler Hoechlin as Superman a few years ago on Supergirl.
Yeah, it was like season 2 of Supergirl.
Pretty good far back.
Yeah, it was. I honestly haven't seen any of those in forever. So, like, I think the most recent one that I saw that instead of this one was Stargirl, and I really enjoyed Stargirl. It was excellent. So if you haven't watched Stargirl, watch Stargirl. Also really good. Also on HBO Max too. So.
Okay. All right. I will consider that because just taking a step back here, my history. I've talked about this at length before. The fact that I was a massive fan of the Arrowverse and what was going on over there. Yeah, I watched Arrow, and I watched Arrow to the end. I still enjoy Arrow. I think it's one of my favorite shows of all time. But there was I don't know. I'm not going to say it was a waning of quality. I think with some shows there were. I think it was just me kind of getting tired of like, it's great for a while, but they kind of kept doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
With Flash, it was a lot of that. Like, I think Flash season 1 is some of the best comic book television ever put to screen. Yeah. It's fantastic. But that show got progressively like just not good. In my person.
He's running around and then he's gonna fight another guy that's super fast too.
Right. Cool. It's I'm the fastest man alive, but oh wait, there's another fastest man.
There's this guy right here. He's faster than me, so I gotta beat him up. He's a bad guy. So, but hey, I mean, like you said, I was a big fan of it for a while, and I remember. I think I don't know what the seasons of like Flash and Arrow was, but it was about like season 3 of Supergirl and like season 3 of Legends of Tomorrow, because those two shows came out roughly the same time-ish, and like. Those were the two shows that was like kind of like where I like stopped watching. I think that would be like season 6 or something like that of Arrow, and like season 4 or 5 of Flash. It was just like, oh yeah, and it got. I've been trying. I try every like 6 months to try to get back into it. So I'll watch like the first like 2 seasons of Arrow, and then I'm like jumping between Flash and Arrow, and then I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
See, I got in a perfect spot way back in the day because I hadn't really been a big TV watcher at all, especially with like comic book stuff, and being that there wasn't a whole lot of comic book stuff before this. But my ultimate like introduction to this was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was a show that I was like, I was getting into the Marvel universe at that time. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a new show. It's by Joss Whedon. It's all that kind of stuff. And yeah, S.H.I.E.L.D. took a while to get its footing. I still like commend that show for like being some of the best that I've ever seen. Like one of my all-time favorite shows.
I think I've only seen up to season 2 on that one. Actually.
Yeah, see, that's when it started getting like it had some ups and downs, but like it was good, but then it got really good, and then it was like okay in places. But I started watching that show, and I had people telling me, look, if you're interested in this show, you need to watch Arrow. And I'm like, what's Arrow? What's going on there? I had no idea any of this. I had no knowledge of comic book knowledge of Green Arrow or anything like that. And they said, just watch it. So I binged, I think it was on season 2 at that point. I binged the first 2 seasons. I'm like, oh, this is great. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I remember, like, I think I was either in high school or like middle school or something like that. And like one of my brothers, I know that show's been out. It came out like forever ago. One of my brothers was watching it on Netflix, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And I've always been a big fan of superheroes, like all my life. So I was like, "Oh, what's this?" It's like, "Oh, it's like a Green Arrow show," and I was like, "All right, I'll check it out." And then I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." And then, like I said, watched it all the way up until probably season 6, I think. And then it kind of, that's when I fell off. But we're not here to talk about those So
No, I don't want to go too far back because I
Mhm.
watched Arrow,
Mhm.
from that point on. I watched it till Barry Allen was introduced, and
Yeah.
it started,
Yeah.
snowballing into the universe.
Yep.
And I watched Legends of Tomorrow for a couple of seasons, maybe, and then
Mhm.
I kind of fell off that show. I watched Flash for a good long while until they got to the cicada guy who had like a spear or something he would throw. Just a normal guy, but apparently all these speedsters couldn't stop him. And I was like, I'm done with this. And I never really got into Supergirl. I think the
I
only episodes I really watched was the Tyler Hoechlin Superman ones.
I like the second season of Supergirl, if I remember correctly, was really good. The first season was okay because that was when it was on because it was started on CBS, and then CBS canceled it after the first season, and then CW picked it up. But in that first season, there was like a quick like crossover with Barry Allen.
Right.
There was like an episode, and like that was like crazy because like that doesn't happen. Like you don't have that like two different like broadcasting networks. You don't have two different characters for different shows like show up, and that's kind of like why she was in a different like universe
Right.
than he was. But
Yeah.
and then I remember seeing Tyler show up as Superman and being like announced. I remember that, and that was like huge news because like back then you don't have two people playing the same character.
Yeah, it was
Like,
a big
you
deal.
don't see that, and you're like, what is this? There's Henry Cavill, he's playing Superman in the movies, and then you got this guy who's this guy? And I remember seeing his Superman, and I was like I really like him. He was a pretty good Superman, like I really enjoyed it. He's pretty good, he's a good guy. And I do love how DC, like another sidetrack, DC just totally is like embracing the fact that like everything is now a multiverse. So
I think that's their strength, honestly,
yeah.
is just because like people were like when they cast Ezra Miller, where they were like, well, Grant Gustin's right there. Why would you do that? But then they had Ezra Miller and Grant Gustin meet, and you're like, okay, this works.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember seeing that like out of context. Like I didn't know like what that was. And, like I remember just like seeing a clip of it online because like that blew up everywhere, and I was like, what? They actually did this.
My jaw was on the floor with that one, and that just amazing stuff.
Exactly.
But okay, let's get to Superman Lois because obviously Superman Lois is a spin-off of that universe. It's set kind of in that universe, but it's also really is kind of its own thing.
Yes, yeah. So I think he's just another version of Tyler's Hoechlin's. How do you pronounce his name?
I think it's Hoechlin.
Hoechlin? Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. So it's like I think he's like another universes. In the thing that I kind of see is I think he's like the only superhero in that universe, kind of a thing.
It definitely
gives off that strong vibe where he's the only one.
It definitely feels that way. Like you're in the Arrowverse. It's like Green Arrow is Star City and Flash is Central City, and they have their own cities. It's when you watch Superman and Lois, it's like, okay, Superman is the most powerful being in this thing, and he seems to be the only superhero.
Yeah.
He's not teaming up with anybody. Other than a few characters that show up in this show independently from that universe. It's completely separate. And that's something that I want to make clear to people. If you're on the fence about this show, if you're not like, okay, well, I like Superman, and I like, what's going on, but I have no idea what's going on in the Arrowverse. How could I get into this?
Yeah.
It's not connected. It really is its own thing. It's a reboot basically, and there's a whole another history, and I want to get into that too, of like where he came from, what happened, and catching you up to the point where it's completely different from what you see. Even though you have Elizabeth Tulloch, who shows up as Lois Lane again. It's those same characters, but it's obviously different versions of those characters.
Yeah, it's like it's the same characters you see in Supergirl, but it's not set in the same universe. Because like I don't believe they were married yet.
Maybe
and
not.
definitely didn't have two sons in their teens. So
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and he's been a Superman for a while too. So he said he was like Superman for like 20 years.
He's got that.
Already.
He's got that midnight shadow. You can tell he's been at it for a while. He's old and grizzled. But that's what I like about this show, and that's why one of the questions that I was thinking of, like, instead of like, spoiler-free thoughts for anyone who not think, like, what would you tell someone that hasn't watched this show why you should watch it? And for me, it's like, I feel it's approachable for anyone. I feel like anybody can just step up and watch this. You don't have to have watched anything before. Obviously a little knowledge of like Superman's backstory would be helpful, but it's really outlined. The opening sequence is like a shortened version of his entire life story that you get. And it's done in a way where it's all pushing the story forward. It's not about retreading certain things. Yes, you do see certain things happen, but it's about, okay, he's Superman. He becomes Superman. He lands in the pod, and mom and pop can't take him in, and they do all this stuff, and then he gets married, and then he has kids, and then they go through all this stuff, and it's pushing it forward to where when you catch up to him, he's in a completely different spot than you've ever seen Superman here before. Like just a minor spoiler here: the first episode, Clark is fired from the Daily Planet. That's a thing that happens. Like, one of the fundamental parts of Clark Kent Superman is he's a timid reporter at the Daily Planet. He loses that in the first episode. That just sets the tone of like, this is a new take.
That first episode that just kicks you right off and you're in for a roller coaster. I remember just like when the first time I saw it, I think when was it added in on the HBO Max? It was like December of last year, like around Christmas time or something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
I want to say within the first 5 episodes. Anyway, I remember just like binging those. Like I was like, oh, I'll watch like one or two in a night, and I binged them all in one night, and I was like, oh man, this was amazing. Like, but yeah, that first episode like takes you in, and you're in for a roller coaster like right away, and you know that you're in watching a great show like right away.
Yeah, it overall it brings you into this new universe, and you're like, okay, this is Superman. This is a character that I know, but it's putting him in a situation you've never seen him in before, and it's giving him problems and doing it in a kind of CW way of like, okay, it's a family drama. It's kind of a soap opera. That's CW's thing. And some people don't like that. I can tolerate it because, I think it can be good. I think Arrow did it pretty good. But I think Superman Lois did it the best. I think Superman Lois is the best at portraying this kind of family dynamic and the drama behind it. And some episodes, there's no Superman. It's not Superman. He's not doing any Superman stuff, and you're totally invested in what's going on. You're still invested in, okay, what's Jordan doing? What's Lois doing? Sometimes Clark's just kind of in the background, just kind of supporting them. And it's more about the kids and about Lois, which I really love.
Yeah, I mean, you there's already a show called Lois and Clark, so you can't call it Lois and Clark, but you might as well call it Lois and Clark in family, I guess.
Right. I guess you could have, the super family or something like this.
Yeah. The super family. No, yeah, like it was. I really do enjoy it. Really did enjoy the show, and definitely gonna rewatch it again. Like, if what I would say to somebody who doesn't know a whole lot about Superman, or like trying to get somebody to watch the show, like, honestly, you don't need to know like a whole bunch. You just he's just this guy that's like all powerful and stuff like that, and then like they explain that all, like, even in like the first episode, like, hey, this is Superman, this is what he does, this is how he is. Like you can come in like not knowing anything about Superman, and then you'd be like, oh, so this is Superman. So I honestly, Superman gets a bad rap because people just like, oh, he's just super powerful and can just beat up people really good, and that's about it. He's got heat vision and stuff like that.
Yeah, and people know Superman. He's literally been around for like 90 years. Like he's
It's
a
like
character.
80. It's almost 80 years now.
I think it's 1938 is when he
Mhm.
was created. So like that's a long time. That's a
Yeah.
character that has been ingrained in popular culture, and I think that's one of the things that like the Marvel movies have done. I think the MCU did really well with not Superman, Spider-Man.
Mhm.
Is the fact that they did Spider-Man Homecoming, and it wasn't about, okay, let's redo the origin of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
We've seen that twice. People, it's in this cultural zeitgeist. People know it. Let's just move forward with the story and take it in a different direction. And I think that's the strength of both Superman Lois and Spider-Man is because it's just going off in a new direction and not trying to retread stuff.
Well, I mean, there's that episode later on where you kind of get like the more backstory of like him becoming Superman, but
Right.
like you don't need that like right away. Like
I love that they put that
Yeah.
like later in the season.
Yeah, and then it was like a nice like middle point of the season where you're like, okay, so now we're getting like that backstory of how this Superman became Superman, like how he got the fortress, how he got his first suit, how him and Lois met, and how they got married and all that like stuff. Like you didn't need that. Like I feel like most shows would have given you that in that first episode. Like that would have been the first episode, like him leaving like Smallville and then going to like go look like become Superman and stuff like that. And I was like, oh no, we'll lead up to this point. Like the story's going to this point, and then we'll kind of have like this little pause here, and then we'll pick it back up. Like halfway through the episode, we're picking it back up.
Right. And I love the framing device that they used for that. That it was like, oh yeah, Talro was just watching his memories all this time, and we will be getting into light spoilers and heavier spoilers as we go along. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Turn this off, pause it, and come back. It's on HBO Max. Like you have no better excuse. Go watch it.
Then once you're done with Superman and Lois, go watch Stargirl.
And see, I'm gonna have to do that now because I haven't seen Stargirl. But
Stargirl is so good. Like I was not ready for how good Stargirl was.
That's great.
And it's the same thing like Superman and Lois, where it's like completely separate from like the CW, but it's on the CW. It's like completely separate, so you can watch it as its own, and it just picks it up and it's great. Anyway, Superman and Lois.
No, it's fine. See, now you're convincing me. Now you're like, I'm like, okay, I have to watch Stargirl now. Okay, that's interesting. What I like about these shows is Stargirl looks different, unique. It looks like it's very enticing. I've been looking on like that doesn't look like all the CW shows, and that leads me to my next topic tonight, which is the look and feel of Superman and Lois. The visual effects are outstanding, I think, for a TV show budget.
Yeah.
And the cinematography is amazing. Like it is this show looks is maybe, pardon the pun, miles above any of the other CW shows. I don't think a lot of the CW shows look terrible. I think they can look a little iffy sometimes, like especially when you see them in certain costumes or whatever else. But they do try. There is some artistic integrity there, but like Superman Lois just takes it to the next level. It feels like a completely different universe, to the point when John Diggle shows up, I'm like, whoa, where did he come from? I didn't know he was in this universe.
I was not prepared for that. Like I was doing some chores as well. I was watching it today, just kind of like listening, and then I heard John Diggle, and I was like, Diggs in the show? Maybe I need to go back and watch the Arrowverse now to understand how they know John Diggle.
Yeah, so it's weird as someone who's watched the Arrowverse, like, okay, what's going on here? How is this connected? Because it doesn't feel connected. It's a different backstory, and you get the whole hey, they had kids, and it's Jonathan and Jordan, and they lived in the city, and now they're moving out. And, it's all this stuff leading up to, but the whole framing of it, and just some of the shots are just amazing. They look amazing. The visual effects, I think, are just great. Some of the visual effects in when you watch, like, if you freeze frame like Flash when he's running, it don't look good.
Yeah,
and you can't blame them. You can't blame them. They're on TV budget.
It's TV budget, but like this really did, like kind of says in in the chat here that the special effects and cinematography of Superman and Lois is like a good, and it makes the show feel like a movie.
A lot of
yeah,
them do.
just like I mean, I remember like watching the old Arrow, like old early Arrow episodes, and you're like all his arrows are like clearly animated. You can see the animation in the arrow,
right? And like especially like early Arrow, it's like when they would have like big shots. Like I think one that stands out to my mind is like when I think it's season 2 where they're going up against Slade Wilson, and there's like this big crane shot of like the ship on fire, like that. Like, whoa, this is so cool! Like it's clearly like it was some Compton animation stuff like that. Like it's not very good, but like you realize that it's like they're doing the best they can. This is a huge deal, and but like you have scenes like that a lot in the same heat.
And I mean that obviously VFX. I could not say that.
Visual effects.
I was struggling there. I was struggling again there. VFX is like obviously like aged like fine wine. Like it just keeps getting better and better and better over the years and stuff like that. So like you can tell even like early Supergirl, like the flying was kind of bad, and like compared to this where it was like, oh, this is really good. Seems like he's actually flying, and like when he's doing his things, it's like it's like really good. It was like, oh wow, this
like there's scenes where he goes like I think it's an early episode where he goes out and there's a fire, and he goes out and he freezes a part of a lake, then he lips up this giant iceberg.
No, that was in the first episode. That was
the
that was the like the nuclear plant that he
which is a reference to I think it's Superman 3 or 4 where he does the same thing. But it's done. It's amazing how that's a movie. This looks so much better than that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not a dig against the other shows. I think the other shows are doing the best they can, and they were great for their time, and perhaps still are. But I mean, this show looks like a movie, and I think I've heard things about the fact that this show wasn't really made by the CW. It was kind of made by HBO Max.
Yeah.
And it just kind of aired on CW. I think that's why it feels so different.
Yes, yeah. So that's the same thing with Stargirl. It was a DC like when the DC universe was like a streaming service before HBO Max. It was a show for them, similar to like Titans and like
Doom Patrol. Yeah.
But that one actually looks like a CW show because they used a lot of the CW like effects and stuff like that for that show. So so that one where like they were like, hey, it was supposed to be for this. We're gonna air it on the CW, and then as it's airing on the CW, the next day you can watch it on our app here, and that's how I watched it, and I was like, oh, they did a good job. But yeah, so this show really felt like it was supposed to be like one of those shows, and then
it definitely just feels different. It looks different. And that's why, and again, it's like when Dig shows up and it's like, whoa, okay, this you just look different because this is a completely different thing. And it's funny after all the crossovers that I really enjoyed, it was nice to just enjoy this as a standalone for the most part. I was almost disappointed when Dig showed up because I'm like, I don't want this show to turn into the Arrowverse where it's a constant team ups. I like the way the show feels and looks right now. I don't want it to necessarily go that way.
Yeah,
and feel cheap, and we're just crossing over things just for the heck of it. It's the story is in more. Important.
Yeah, I feel like even that Diggle's different from like the Diggle we see in Arrow though. He's completely a different character.
Yeah,
he's working for what was that organization?
Argus.
That's what it was. I was like, it started with an A. It was not Artemis. Argus, where he's not actually working for Oliver Queen. He's working for Argus completely.
I think
so he's a different version of John Diggle.
Right. I think at the very least, and I think Kenny was in the chat saying something similar that like the whole universe thing, kind of they merged everything and kind of made a new universe, And so like with Arrow, it's like he fixes everything with Arrow and everything's different at the end because what Oliver does. So it is very different, and it's interesting. It'll be interesting how they kind of what Easter eggs they will pull in. I really don't think we're going to see like Barry Allen show up. I don't think that's going to happen. It really feels like they're setting Superman up as he's the big guy on campus. He's the guy that's going to save everyone. You can't have all these other superheroes, Martian Manhunter, Supergirl, whatever, showing up. I think
you're definitely not going to get Supergirl because Melissa's done.
Right. Yeah. That show is ending. There's going to be really no reason to cross over.
You're definitely not going to have Melissa show up because she's no longer Supergirl. So
right.
It's like, I'm done.
Right.
Which I mean, don't blame her. She's been doing it for.
She had a good run.
10 years
she had a good
now,
run. I think
almost.
all of them had a good run. I expect Flash will be ending pretty soon.
I feel like they're going to kick out a couple more seasons on that. What are they at? 8 now?
They lost Cisco recently, so I'm like, how much more can you go?
That's fair. That was my favorite character. I don't know.
Mine too.
Like I was like, hey, it's so much. I want to get back into it, but like I found a website. I found a website that like told you like, all right, you gotta watch like how to like the correct viewing order of all of these. You like exactly when to watch, so like when you hit the crossover episodes that they're like, yes.
Right. And see, like I will like you'll see the crossovers and they're building up to another crossover very soon. And I watched the previews where I'm like, man, I wish I knew what was going on. Like it's kind of sad, but I don't miss it that much. But okay, so speaking of Flash, there's something I want to bring up really quick in regards to how the characters act in this show. I think is something that is so well done, and it shows how bad some of the stuff in the Arrowverse was, especially the Flash. Because so tell me if you've watched this episode of the Flash forward. Just stop me if you remember this. So Barry at the start of the episode, he's a dick for no reason. He's yelling at everybody, and he hurts Cisco's feelings. And then for the rest of the episode, Cisco is mad at him, but like when Barry walks in the room, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. And he walks out of the room. And, that goes on, and then they make up at the end, and then they have a big thing. And that's probably like 20 episodes of The Flash.
Like every other one.
Look, I enjoy so many of those episodes. I'm not really bashing it. I'm just saying that got old very quickly. And it also, I think CW stuff, I say CW stuff as it's all CW, but like the Arrowverse stuff, it relied so much on the characters. It was dealing with all adults. I think so many of them had to be petty and act like children to kind of like make the drama work, versus a great example, which is, I think, Superman and Lois. Superman and Lois, I think the characters of Clark and Lois are very grounded, especially Lois. I love her character. I love how they characterized her and how she's very open and honest. She's direct and to the point sometimes. I love how there's one episode where like there's this whole thing that's happening, and she's like, I know I shouldn't be mad at you about this. I know I'm being unreasonable, but I can't help how I feel. She just like breaks it down. I'm like, I've never seen or heard a character in a TV show or movie talk like that. I've never heard them like rationalize how they're feeling like that. I'm like, that's something impressive. But going forward, also the characterizations and the fact that you don't have Clark or Lois doing stupid stuff. You don't have them saying stupid things or being childish. That's left to the kids because they're raising teenagers. Teenagers, I don't know if you know this, they can be kind of dumb sometimes. I know, because I was once one of them. All right. I think we kind of have first-hand experience with being dumb.
A little bit.
But that makes sense. Jonathan and Jordan, yes, they're assholes sometimes. Sometimes they're idiots. But it makes sense because they're kids and they do stuff like that. And it fits with their characters. And you have that teachable moments of like them doing something stupid, them saying something stupid, them being jerks to somebody else or to each other. And the parents get to do this. And the parents don't get involved with this. They're, Lois probably will yell at them before Clark will. And, it's beautiful how they did it.
Mhm.
And in this first season, how they kind of developed them over time, and then you have Jordan developing his powers and all this kind of stuff is thrown in. It's really, really strong stuff, really, really strong storytelling. And I think the characters shine through all this. And it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like, oh, they're just cranking up the drama for no reason. No, it has something. Each episode has kind of a resolution, but it's still left open to, okay, what's going to happen in the next episode? We're having a progression here. I'm rambling here, but I want to hear your thoughts. I'm sorry, but yeah, I love this so much.
Yeah, I really did enjoy how like in that first episode they were like, oh, so here you got the kind of like shy nerdy kid, and you got your athletic one, and then you're like, one of these, you're like, okay, one of these is gonna have powers. Obviously, it's gonna be the athletic one, right? And then like no, it was the shy, like anxiety ridden. Like I was like, oh, dude, I feel that. But it was like it was the opposite one that you thought was gonna have all the powers, and then even Clark wasn't ready for that, because Clark was thinking like, oh yeah, Jonathan's got to have the powers, right? Because he's really good at sports and stuff like that. I mean, he's like, oh, he's really good at football, so he's got to be the one, and that's gonna have the power, and not the other one. And I love it in the first episode. He's playing Jordan's playing Injustice 2. He's like
playing as Superman. They don't know their dad is Superman, but they're playing as Superman.
No, he was playing as Rhydon, right? And he was like, he's like, oh, you're Superman? He's like, no, Superman sucks. I'm Rhydon. I was like, I love that. Thank you.
I had to pause on that because I'm like, wow, they have like a game with Superman in it in this universe where there is a real Superman.
Yeah. I mean,
crazy stuff.
I own that game. I was like, oh, hey, I own that game.
Yeah, I've seen that before. But yeah, that whole thing, and the fact that they don't try to they don't do again the Flash thing of we got to keep a secret from everybody. It's like the first episode they lay it all down.
Yeah.
And then further on in the episode, they're like, okay, we're not going to keep secrets from you. We're going to tell you what's going on with Superman, all this kind of stuff, and keep you things. Still a little unbelievable that they didn't figure out their dad was Superman all those years, but it's in the magic glasses. You got to give them credit.
Honestly, again, jumping ahead, when Lana in the episode, what was it? Something about it was like episode 10. I want to say when Lana sees Superman in person, she's like, "Oh, I've never seen him in person." I was waiting for her to be like, "Is that Clark?"
You think one person's got
to be like, "That guy looks like Clark."
But it was funny when John Henry Irons is like, he sees Clark go into his thing, and this is a guy that's familiar with Superman. He's fought Superman. And he's like, oh, it's her husband. Like, wait a minute, he doesn't figure it out. Like he doesn't know what's the deal here. That was very funny.
That was a twist that I was not ready for. Like that, his whole character arc. I thought that was well done. John Henry Irons.
And he was not a character that I knew anything about. It kind of made sense to me that like, oh yeah, it's a Luthor from another Earth. And to have that flipped on us and say, no, it's not Luthor at all. It's this, it's Steel, which I had no idea anything about him, but great to see him here.
Yeah. Like I was like, oh, so he's just an alternate version of Luthor trying to kill Superman. That's kind of like, when hasn't a Luthor tried to kill a Superman? That's
kind of their thing.
It's kind of their thing. And then I was like, oh, he's not Lex Luthor, actually. And I was like, oh, okay. And then like, oh, he's John Henry Irons. I was like, oh, that makes sense now. Steel, yeah, that's a prominent like character. I didn't like his Doom suit that he had. I don't know if you know the video game Doom, but it's like,
yes, I'm vaguely familiar.
Yes, yeah, look up Doom, like the Doom character.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
It is literally the same suit. Like I was like, oh, that is the same suit. He's wearing Doom's suit. But I was like,
oh dang, you're right. Like it's straight.
it is the same suit, folks. I'd pull up a graphic, but I can't. So
it's like if you kind of, I don't know, it's like if you merge the Halo Master Chief and
Yep.
and that, like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
basically
it's
that exact thing.
the
Wow.
same. I was like, oh, I wasn't a fan of that, but then because like I do like Steel's actual like look, where it's like the face plate and it's got like a giant S on it, and he's got the massive hammer. I do like that, but I thought, I was like, well, I really did like his character though, like trying to, and that whole like he's from another universe kind of thing, or another multiverse.
Another planet, another Earth, whatever.
Yeah.
But I liked his whole character arc of like coming
Mhm.
there, and you understand why he wants to do that.
Mhm.
You understand why he needs to kill Superman, and this is very personal for him.
Mhm.
And even when it comes down to like, it's so that moment when he's there and he's got Superman down, and Lois is like, please don't kill my husband. Don't do that, please. Like,
Mhm.
he can resist this. And him giving him that chance is like so great. And then they get to team
Yeah.
up, and it's great seeing them kind of like him progress to that. Again, special effects are great. It has to be like all CGI, that suit,
Yeah.
but it looks great almost always. And the hammer coupled with that is just really well done.
I like when they were fighting in Metropolis and he throws the hammer, and then like the guy's like, "Oh, you missed," and then it smacks the one chick, the evil super chick that was there. I already forgot her name, and I literally
I can't either.
finished this season like 2 hours ago.
He's like, nah,
He smacks her, and then it like comes back and hits the other guy. He's like, "Think I don't miss." I was like, he was totally gonna do that Thor thing where he just like throws it and then catches again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the fact that he's all like technology based and very unique character, and someone, if you've seen the ending, like he's clearly going to be sticking around in some form, and more drama there, and their connections and the fact that he was basically in love with that universe's Lois Lane, and that complicates things, and like Jonathan and Jordan kind of having this half sister, kind of, but not really, not really a sister, but
I would
kind
say not
of,
really, but sort of. It's like,
but
it is, but it isn't. It isn't, but kind of could be.
But I think that was really touching how they kind of brought in the whole idea of they had a baby, they lost that baby, it was going to be Natalie, that whole drama, and like some really incredible acting from Elizabeth to like take that, and like it opens with like her in therapy going like, I screwed up big time, and like, what did you do? And then you understand where she's coming from, but like it's totally raw emotions of like, I can't lose another kid, and you're being stupid, and I mean he was, but it wasn't quite that thing. And then her coming back and apologizing, and it's like, this is good. I love this kind of drama. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna be dark and broody, and I'm gonna be mad at you for all episode. It's how families work. If you've been in a family before, I think we all have. That's how it works.
Yeah. There was a lot of good elements in the show, like even just like the little, like when Jordan starts playing football and he's just smacking everybody around, and they're like, "Oh, you're not supposed to do that. Don't hit him too hard."
Well, it's funny. I just thought about the fact that I think the reason this is called Superman and Lois, as you said, is because they've taken all of the really good names already.
Yeah.
Because this could have easily been called Smallville, because they do a really great job of developing not just the Kent family, but like, what Lana's doing. You're always picking up what Sarah's doing. That whole relationships, and I like her husband's arc. He starts out as kind of this douchebag who is this I've met a guy like this probably once or twice. You all know that type of guy, but his kind of like progression into like being a little humbled and being all this and becoming a freaking Kryptonian for a while. That was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, good stuff.
I was not ready for that reveal when Morgan Edge, like, he's like, I'm Kryptonian, and he starts floating there, and I was like, what? I was not ready for that. Like, okay, time out. What?
Yeah. I will. If I had any criticism of this show, I will. It started to feel a bit like, I don't know, everything's connected. It kind of felt a little bit more Arrowverse-y when you have like Morgan Edge is like revealed. Oh yeah, actually, I'm Tal-Rho, and I am another Kryptonian that came to Earth. I'm secretly your brother, half brother, whatever. Little too convenient. I can look past it because it was well done. But it's a lot to take in.
It was kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird. Why does he have to be related to Superman? I mean, he could have just been another, like, at first when they did that scene and he was wearing like all black, that black super suit, and I was like, so he's General Zod, okay. And then he's like, I'm Tal-Rho, and I was like, who? I'm your half brother. I'm like, what? All right, this makes no sense to me. You could have just been a different Kryptonian, but okay.
Right. Yeah, it's always like secret brother or sister is not always done well. It's like with another good example, a good example I think is Star Trek Discovery. Is like you got into that show. I don't know if you've watched it. But the premise is it's Michael Burnham. She's the half sister of Spock, and you're like, wait a minute, Spock had a sister? What's the deal with this? And you watch the show, and it's actually like really good and compelling, and they do really a justice to they justify the reasoning for like they could have just made her a new character. They made her Spock's sister, and it makes sense in the show. But in like just raw feelings, you're like, why did you have to do this? Couldn't they just be a new character that's not connected? Does everybody have to be related? It's the Star Wars syndrome of, everybody's got to be, I'm your brother's sister's cousin's former roommate.
One of them new Star Wars books, it makes me super excited. But we're not here to talk about those Star Wars books. So talked about that last night.
Yeah.
Talked about that last night on Star Wars Underworld. Check it out on YouTube.
We will have to do a Star Wars books episode of IPC. I don't think we've ever done that.
I just gave you a nice plug there, Ben.
I appreciate that. And I rolled over it.
Just now. Anyway.
These people, the IPC listeners, they're like, oh, another rest of you plug. Jeez. Never heard that one before.
You all day, every day here, Ben. Anyway, back to Superman and Lois.
I'm trying to think of what else I want to cover. I made notes. I'm so excited. I actually made notes.
I watched them all, and I was just taking them in. So
yeah,
I thought. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No. I'm just gonna say. I'm gonna go back to brag on Lois for a second. I think her character is great. I think her character could have easily blended in with the background or not been nearly as strong. I think it could have been with the show being so focused on the kids and obviously Superman being in the title. Lois Lane could easily just fade into the background or not having, but she has her own story. She is constantly, putting herself out there, doing things, getting crap done. And I think it's really strong writing. I think in a world where we need more badass female characters, one that being Lois Lane, one of the most legendary female characters of all time, having her kind of be a part of the action and just the camaraderie I get that they have, that they've been doing this for so long. They have a system and they know they can, he can hear them. They have the little beeper thing that goes off. I like the mechanics of how it all works. And and the fact that General Lane's in it, he's not an enemy, he's a friend, and he's trying to work with him, but he's kind of an asshole, but he's doing his best. There's a lot of moving pieces I think they did really well of developing the Superman mythos into something that feels real and normal and something that you feel like, okay, a lot of time has passed. This makes sense. We would be here now after all these years.
Yeah. It's like what I said. If there wasn't a show already called Lois and Clark, this show would have been called Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
Because Superman really took a backseat in the show. And he does some Superman things. He shows up and he's wearing the costume for some episodes, and he flies around and beats up people, but it doesn't feel like a Superman show, honestly. And that's one thing I really enjoyed about it. Gonna admit, Superman's not my favorite DC superhero. I like that guy right there, that Batman character.
Will Batman ever show up in this show? You want to take any bets?
I don't think so, because I don't think a Batman would work in this Superman, in this universe of Superman, where Smallville is a 10-minute drive away from Metropolis, because they play each other in football, apparently. When one is in Kansas and one was supposed to be New York City. So
and it's implied that so much has happened that, like, when they mention like General Zod, it's not General Zod who, it's like, oh yeah, General Zod. Everybody knows who General Zod is, probably because he's fought General Zod at some point. He's been through all of the rogues gallery already. Maybe there was a Batman at some point and he fought him and get it. Like, it's possible. It's gonna be interesting how they kind of develop this over the seasons, because I'm assuming it is getting a season 2, I hope, and more seasons. But how they will deal with the kind of implied history of this Superman, and like what's he been up to, what's he been doing. Obviously he's been fighting bad guys for 20 or 15, 20 years, but like, are there other heroes? Has he interacted with them? Are they doing things? Is there a Batman? Probably not, because it really, like, it seems to be all the weight of the world of like being saved is on his shoulders.
Yeah, he definitely feels like he's the only superhero in that universe, kind of a thing, where there's not like any other. There's no Justice League. It's just Superman. Like, he's the only one there,
and that's kind of classic Superman, going way back to the beginning of it. Like, it's just Superman. And I think there's a time, I think we've reached the kind of the top of the like crossover thing. I think it's time to like, not everything has to cross over. Yes, it's great to have crossover. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love what they're doing with the DCEU, but like, it's time to, sometimes you need to step back and go like, let's just tell a story. And sometimes it's more interesting when you have one superhero in one universe, and that's it. That ups the ante. And you have literally a guy like Clark Kent who is having to choose and having to constantly deal with the fact that he's the one person that can save everyone, but then he also has to deal with his family. And that's something that's infinitely more compelling to like, oh, I am the protector of such and such city, and that's me, and as long as this city's safe, I don't care about anybody else.
I mean, going to another Superman show, or movie technically, Man of Steel, where it feels like that was Man of Steel itself felt like Superman was the only one there. And then when Batman versus Superman came out, you're like, oh, okay, so Batman's been around for a while. And that's something I did really enjoy about that movie, is like, Batman was there beforehand, and it's not like he's, and it's something that like the MCU can't do, because they've established that like who's around is who around, unless they were like back in the 90s or way back in the 40s kind of a thing. So, but like all the new characters are just being like established pretty much. But that was something I really did like where he didn't need a origin story of Superman, because it's not like, oh, you've seen like Superman's origin story in how many movies now?
Yeah, so many times.
It's like, oh, obviously we're gonna touch on it, we're gonna mention it, because like every story is different, but it's like you should know it already. You should know how Superman became Superman. We're just gonna pick up while he's in his like 40s.
Yeah,
like,
and I like how this show goes out of its way to kind of like take away those mainstays of the classic Superman stories of like, oh, Paul Kent's gone, but Ma Kent's there. no, we lose Ma Kent pretty quickly, and
Mhm.
it's very emotional, and it's a touch point for the show. But it's also, there's no, I mean, we assume Lex Luthor is someone he's dealt with before, but he's not
Yeah.
around now. You're
Yeah.
not going back to because they could have easily done that. It could have just been Lex Luthor shows up. That could have been Morgan Edge, but that wasn't.
Yep.
And I appreciate they didn't do that. But it's
Yeah.
not just that. It's like, Lois and Clark, they're both journalists. They work at the Daily Planet. That's gone. She
Mhm.
loses it, and they go back to Smallville, and they get to live on this farm. You get to see and kind of flexes on that beautiful cinematography of seeing the farm every so often,
Mhm.
but like doing it in a completely different way, and doing it so that you're taking Superman out of an element. Now he's a dad, and
Yeah.
he's a
He's-
assistant coach for
He's got
free for his son's football team.
yeah,
And
and he's got to pretend that this ice cart is super heavy and he can't hold it by himself.
I love that. I love it so much.
It's like,
But-
hey, can you help me with this? Like, I gotta sell the bit here.
Right. So, but like it takes away those things.
Mhm.
It's not your typical Superman story. This ain't your granddaddy's Superman story, but like
Yeah.
it's true. It's true. It's way different. And I think it's something that we need in this new age. We need a new take on Superman. We don't need another,
Yeah.
it's Clark Kent and it's Kal-El in a escape pod and he's coming to Earth and we're gonna start all over again.
Mhm.
Nah, we don't need that. They give us all of that in the first 5 minutes, the first episode,
Yep.
and that's it. And
Yeah.
that's all you need.
Well, I mean, then they retouch it up in like episode 11, but still, like here, it's like the story. We don't need to repeat ourselves again. We'll just give you a quick overview, which is perfect. Like if you're a new Superman fan, or if you have no idea who Superman is, and you're like, I don't know the Superman guy, and you start watching this, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is how we get here, or you're like me, returning, like seeing pretty much
Mhm.
everything with Superman in it, and you're like, oh, okay, it's like, yep, okay, this is how this Superman became Superman. All right, okay,
Right. And even in that episode 11, there, obviously there is some retreading, but there's
Mhm.
also a lot of new stuff in there too,
Mhm.
and a lot of more, it's more about, him kind of connecting with Lois and,
Mhm.
and one like thing that they do differently, I think, even from like previous iterations is like Lois falls in love with Clark Kent.
Yeah.
She's like in love with him and she's like, Superman, whatever. But like she loves him. And that's
Mhm.
like, just makes her a better character because she's not shallow. She's not
Yeah.
in love with the big powerful guy. But like I love the whole instance of like just that whole development of like him going out and him having kind of lamenting on his regrets that he left his mom behind to go seek out the Fortress of Solitude and all this kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of good stuff, and I think stuff that we know happens. And I didn't think they even have like him whole, throwing the crystals like that, which was great as someone who,
Yeah.
I recently rewatched the original 1970s Superman, and like having that kind of stuff kind of brought back into the, new, in a new way. It's have that thing and give it new context and give a kind of new view on it, so that you're, it's way more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's so much like talk about. Yet I'm like,
We could do a
blanking on
whole
what-
episode on one episode of this. Like,
Exactly.
there's so much in it.
Exactly.
If anybody has any like
episodes are-
thoughts about any particular episode or something, have questions for us, feel free to drop them in the comments. But
yeah, there was.
like
I remember just like I was like, there's so much happening.
I
and
didn't
just-
think I would enjoy it this much. I saw it. I'm like, this looks good. This looks good. I hope it's as good as that. I hoped that it didn't turn out to be like the first episode looked really good, and the rest of them were like garbage.
Yeah, where like the pilot's really good, and then the rest.
They clearly like saved all the budget for the first
Yeah.
episode. It's not that at all. Like it looks so good from everything from like Superman lifting a truck to, just random scenes in a diner or whatever. Like it all looks really, really good. And it's really strong.
Yeah, I did really like how he like introduced himself as Superman to the kids. He's like, "Yeah, I'm Superman," and they're like, "No, you're not." It's like, hold the glasses. Let me pick this truck up here real quick, real easy, and and float here. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense now."
That's a lot to take in. A lot to take in.
Yeah, and that shot is just so good. It makes
so
you
good.
actually think he's actually picking up a truck. Instead, he's not. He's probably picking up some CGI thing.
But it just shows like the minimal effort that he has into just doing anything.
Yeah.
And then he does the same thing with like a giant bridge, and it's no sweat. It's just it's so good. It's so visual. But I think some of the stuff that I find myself involved for the family drama, and not so much like, oh, Superman's gonna do something crazy this week. It's more about what are Jonathan and Jordan doing? What's happening? His development of his powers, Jonathan kind of stepping into that role. I love the moment when Lois, because I kept expecting them to like reveal that Jonathan also had powers.
Yeah. So when he like stopped Jordan from punching that dude from Metropolis in the face, like super punching him, I thought he like was gonna catch it with his hand, like he had superpowers himself, but instead they broke his hand, and I was like, oh, okay, that works. I guess
there was a theory that got floated around early on that I kind of believed, which was that they separately they really didn't have good powers, but together when they were close together physically, their powers manifested, and they both were powerful. I think that's obviously not true. That Jonathan's just like Jordan got all the Kryptonian genes, and Jonathan didn't.
Yeah,
I think that's interesting. I think considering how well Lois works in this show and how strong a character she is, and I love the moment where she's like, "Look, you have to deal with this. You have to deal with the fact that we're powerless. We don't have superpowers. We can still make a difference. We can still make this work, and I'll teach you how to deal with it." Just like, Superman is training, Jordan how to control his powers. Lois has something to impart on Jonathan about being a bystander, basically, living with a god and not being able to do everything that they are doing.
Yeah, it's like, hey, your brother's super powerful, but you still got some things,
Yeah.
You're not totally useless.
And it's like you were saying earlier, it's like, it would be perfect if the athletic, quote unquote, normal brother had the superpowers, but no, it's
and that even just in that pilot episode, that's the one you think has got powers. You're like, oh, so like, yeah, Jonathan's gonna be the one getting all the powers. He's the one kind of that like Clark likes the most. It seems like, it's like, yeah, he's the one that's gonna get the powers. It's the popular kid, right? Popular kids always get powers, and you're like, oh no, it's the other one. It's Jordan. And you're like, oh, okay,
right. And I liked how, it's very apt to have like they established that Jordan's different. He has emotional problems, all that kind of stuff. Like, how apt is that for today's society, where we have a lot of people who have deal with we all have deal with mental health issues. Like it's a thing now. We're as a society kind of waking up to the idea that we all have emotions and they can control us in weird ways, and we got to deal with it in a proper way, otherwise it can be very destructive. But throwing in, oh yeah, you have superpowers, you are literally Superman, how do you deal with that? And it's just it's a great kind of psychoanalysis of like our world.
I guess we haven't really touched on Morgan Edge that much and what he wanted to do.
Right. So he's
creating
his plan is like creating Krypton on Earth, which I guess is basically Zod's plan in Man of Steel and a lot of other plans. Just different ways.
He wanted to possess people, whereas Zod just wanted to destroy the world. And
so that was interesting and a bit of tense sometimes.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
you kind of feel when Superman is possessed and you're like, oh crap. And then
Mhm.
when Jordan gets taken, you're like, oh crap. Like, how is this gonna work? I love how they resolved it. I loved how Jonathan was the one to kind of snap him out of it, and you know, the
Yeah.
whole idea being like someone with a strong will can break through this. It's not inevitable. It's not a death sentence. It's not just, you know, oh my god, the world's ending. It's like
Mhm.
if you fight hard enough, you can overcome this. I love that message.
I liked it when Superman, when he was possessed, and when he was fighting Steel,
Right.
and then he heard Lois's voice over it, and that's kind of like what brought him back when he was Zod and he was going to town beating up Steel, and then Lois comes over the intercom, and he heard that, and he was just kind of like stop, and that was kind of what brought him back mostly.
And it's great. It was a great moment for Lois because I think it would be very easy for it to just be her motivation was, oh, I love him. That's my husband. And I don't want you to kill him. You know, that would be understandable. But we've seen that cliche of don't kill this person that I care about because they're mind control. We've seen that 1,000 times. It was Lois going like logically going like, he can overcome this. He's Superman. I know he can. I have this long history with him. I know he can get over this. You just have to help him. Just killing him is not going to solve this. So I really like that. I liked, again, Lois stepping up, having a part to play in this, having a really strong just character moment and being a part of it. I just, you know, it's just great stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Like I was not ready for. I was like, oh, okay, so this evil version of not evil version. This version of Lex Luthor is just gonna beat up Superman the entire time, and he's gonna fight him. And so I was like, oh, that's the plot. And I was not expecting this like whole like, hey, Kryptonians coming back to life.
Right.
They're gonna possess him, and then they're gonna make them take over the world, and that's how this versions of Henry Irons' world ended. And it was like, oh, I was not ready for that plot line at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just like, oh, this is way better than what I thought was gonna happen. Where he was just gonna fight this Luthor guy.
Continually through the season, you're like, wow, okay, this is getting better. You keep, I maybe cynically kept waiting for it to kind of drop off or have like, dare I say it, some filler episodes, some just a portion of this, like with the stories going nowhere. It never got to that point. It never got to the point where it felt like you were running in place. It felt like each episode had its own story. It had its own point to it. It had its own moral. And it had like a problem that was created at the front of the episode and was resolved by the end of the episode, but it still played into the overall plot of the season to the point where you keep watching. And it wasn't like The Flash was really bad about this, and even Arrow to a certain extent of like nothing happens for like 40 minutes. And then like the last 5 minutes, like, oh my gosh, you know, here's what the villain's been doing all this time. The main villain of the season has been doing all this time, and we're going to show you 2 minutes of that to keep you coming back for next episode, which didn't always work for me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, there was parts in those shows where it was slow, but it didn't. I mean, there was slow moments, but like overall, it didn't feel like there was an episode where it was just slow, because like there was times where I was like, oh, this episode's like almost over, and I was like, oh no, there's still 20 minutes left in this episode. Like I was like, oh, so they finished the first plot of the episode, part of the episode, so that's gonna be done here. And then I was like, oh no, there's still time, and even still beating up him.
Yeah, and even the season overall, you have kind of like, I think it's the third to last episode, there's kind of like an ending. It's like they capture Morgan Edge and it's all over. It ends very, very quickly, and you're like, okay, that felt suspiciously thing, but it kind of wrapped everything up. And I think
so I was like, oh,
I don't think it was intentional on their part. I think there was a lot of, I think they kind of wrapped it up for COVID reasons maybe, but then they got greenlit for 2 more episodes to kind of finish it out later on. So they came back and reshot everything, and did 2 more episodes. I think it benefited the show greatly because I think those last 2 episodes are great, and it gives a better, proper ending to the series, to the show, thankfully. Which is great.
Yeah. I was like, oh, so they that's how it ends, but I still have like 2 more episodes. Like, I'm not done yet. Like,
yeah, it feels very definitive,
but
and you're watching it, and you're like, wait, what?
And actually, I think it was episode 12 that happened. So, like, there were still 3 more episodes, and I was like, "There's still 3 more episodes in the show. Like, what's gonna happen next?" I guess.
Right, exactly. Like, they captured the bad guy. What's
he's in prison. He already okay.
Real quick. So Kenny, I think we'll begin to wrap things up after this. So I want to get one question. I did ask for a couple questions, and Kenny says it will be interesting to see where Superman Lois goes in season 2. What new elements do you want to come in the second season? So I'll pass it off to you, Chad. What do you want from a season 2?
I don't know. I mean, keep it pretty much as is. I'm just curious on how the story is going to go, because that ending, like, first of all, I called it right away. Once I saw it coming out, I was like, oh, that's his daughter. that's Natalie. So I was like, totally saw that coming. But then then I was like, oh, and then it ended on that cliffhanger of her like looking at Lois and be like, Mom, and then like, what? Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious on how like the story of like rebuilding Smallville now that like everything's over. I'm curious to see where Jordan and Sarah go, and wonder what's going on with Jonathan and that one other chick.
Yeah. The one thing that like they kind of left open was the fact that like Sarah still doesn't know about Jordan's, even though very close calls, and she saw him get kidnapped by by Morgan Edge, all this kind of stuff. So that was interesting. But I'm looking forward to like maybe some reveals next season. Maybe Sarah gets in the inner circle, and we get to see more. I think just the development of like the Lana and her family, I think would be great. I'm interested to see like would they go the route of like Lana finding out Clark is Superman, like being that they've really made something out of Clark and her's friendship. I think would be interesting to see.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know. Like, I feel like the way the show's going, I think Lana's going to become the mayor of.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Because like how the mayor was kind of like trashing her just because like he wanted to get reelected, and it was just like I wonder if like that's how Lana's going to become. It's like I wonder if that's how Lana's going to become like the mayor, maybe, or something like that, because now she doesn't have a job or anything. Like shoot, what was his name? What was the dad's name?
I cannot remember for the life of me. I just know it's Lana's husband.
It just blinked. Anyway, he got his job back as the fire chief and stuff like that. So like, I mean, it wrapped up pretty good for them. It's like, all right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's something interesting. I really like your idea. I think that's a very likely option that I hadn't thought of. Here's another thing. What if they go the Oliver Queen route, where they elect Clark as mayor, and he has to deal with being mayor and Superman?
I don't think they'll do that part, but because I don't think Clark himself, like Clark, would do that, like run for mayor. So I see
it more as like, oh, Clark, we love you. We voted while you weren't here, and we decided you're going to be mayor. Like, I could see that happening in Smallville.
Yeah, I could see that, but I don't know. I think Lana's going to become the mayor, and then I think that might be a story for next season. I'm curious, like, if Sarah's going to figure out at some point Jordan's got superpowers, and then she's going to be like, wait, so how do you have superpowers and your dad, nobody else in your family does? And then she's going to figure out, wait a second.
Well, yeah, and it's gonna be interesting to see like how they deal with it, because they've
Mhm.
kind of explicitly said that Lois never figured it out,
Mhm.
and the kids never figured it out. Clark told them. Clark revealed it to them. So,
Mhm.
like, does that mean that no one can figure it out, or
Yeah.
does that mean that, like, could Sarah hypothetically like put pieces 2 and 2 together and figure it out at some point? Does that make Lois look kind of dumb for not doing it? I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
true. It's true.
But I'm sure they've probably already talked about that. It'd be interesting to see. I'm sure
Mhm.
there's going to be like several more people, including I'm sure Sarah will be like the first one to
Yeah.
figure that out. And
Yeah.
who knows?
I'm trying to figure out like a villain that they could bring in, but I don't know. Like I don't know how a second season's gonna play out. I'm just
Yeah.
here for the ride. I'm
I
ready.
definitely seeing Lana and her family playing a more
Yeah.
bigger role. And I think they're going to
Yeah.
be very much kind of front and center. And I like the mayor idea. I think that's got some
Also,
legs.
side note, how they forgot about the younger daughter, like so many times in that shit. So, like, there
It's
was like one
amazing.
time she came in for an episode, and she's like, "I'm back." Like, shoot, we gotta shoot. Where'd she go? Gotta bring her back in the show.
It's
I'm back.
clear
Hope
that like
nothing bad
they
happened.
like wrote the first episode and they're like, oh yeah, they have 3 kids, and then they got halfway
like,
through the season. You're like, we only needed 2 kids.
no, it's like they had.
Oh,
2
you're right.
kids.
There's only 1 kid. There's only 2
Yeah.
kids. Only 2 kids.
Yeah,
and the
they
second
were like,
kid is
they're like, shoot, we should have wrote her just Sarah.
Right. She didn't need a
she was
sibling.
at her grandparents' house the entire time. Yep. Mhm.
I think at a certain point they just like don't even acknowledge it, like that she's not
Yeah, no.
there or that she's home alone.
Yeah, like when they came home from after like everybody got rid of their superpowers, and like there was like the broken window and like
Mhm.
leave Smallville, and I was like, wait, so where was the other daughter? Was not in the house? Like, I was, where'd she go?
Exactly. That's
And I was
funny.
like, oh, and then like I think later on in the episode she like did come back, and she was like, I was back, I'm back. Hope nothing crazy happened when I was gone. And I'm like, she wasn't here around.
It's a wonder they didn't come up with like, oh, she went off to summer camp. She went off with the Girl Scouts or something like that. Just come up with some kind of excuse to get her out of there.
Another show. That's what happened in Cobra Kai. Because they wrote what's his name's character? Wow, I'm blanking on all the main characters in shows.
Yeah, it's hard.
They
especially
wrote the main Karate Kid. Had a son and a daughter.
Oh, Daniel LaRusso.
Daniel LaRusso. He had a son, and then like the son got wrote off in like middle of season 2, and hasn't seen in like the later seasons. I think they like acknowledged he went to summer camp or something like that one time, and it was like, so, you wrote it for 1 kid, and then you wrote it for 2 kids. You start out, he's like, all right, he's got 2 kids, and then you just like, we only need the daughter. So
it is amazing to watch. Like Arrow was like bad about like clearly an actor just wanted out of the show, and I think it was like I think Thea did the whole like, I'm leaving town, and it was like clearly like behind the scenes like Willa Holland was just done. She just wanted out, and so they're like, oh yeah, we could see you, and then we'll never see you again because you're leaving town, because apparently you'll never see you again.
Why am I'm blanking on all the characters' names tonight.
See, that's my job normally speaking.
Yeah, Red Arrow, when Red Arrow disappeared.
Yeah, him.
Harper.
Yeah, he's
when
Harper.
Just was like, when the actor was like, I'm done with this. I don't want to be on the show anymore. And they're like, oh, he died, and then he came back to life, and then he's like, he's gone. He left.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's gone. He left now, but now he's dead. But then he's not. They use the Lazarus pit on him, and it's all this kind of stuff, and that whole thing.
But the actor doesn't want to be in the show anymore. So.
But then they clearly like regret it because they'll come back, or maybe they just offer him an absorbent amount of money. But whatever. Speaking of money, we have a Patreon here at IPC. That is patreon.com/IPC patreon.com/IPC podcast. You can see it right there. Patreon.com/IPC podcast. You can get a lot of interesting and really cool exclusives. You get access to a special Facebook group. Fun fact, good old Chad here. He's a patron. And one of the bonuses of being a patron is you might just get the chance to be on the show. And that's something. It helps that Chad's a friend too. And
Not just a patron.
that helps, but it is a genuine, like, I want to do more shows with like the patrons, get you guys together and do stuff, because we do have a lot of stuff going on. And you will be in the loop with what that happens. I do want to say a special thanks to Joey Mays and Jesse Bennett for their support of the show, because they are at the shout out friend tier. And so they get access to everything, plus get their name shouted out each and every week on the show. And you get as I said, exclusive group, behind the scenes info. You get access to the show notes every week. And we even put out polls, stuff like that. We'll ask you guys if you want, what topics we're going to be doing. I actually want to do more of that too, because there's a lot of stuff happening. And, you never know when you might get the chance to actually tell us what we are going to talk about. So that's a lot of fun. Patreon.com/IPC podcast. And also, speaking of Jesse Bennett, we have a little shout out of our own, and it's a part of our Patreon. It is a shout out to an advertisement to the awesome podcast, which I'm going to be a guest on very, very soon. Question/possible answer. And here's what they say. Come join us at Question Possible Answer as we discuss some of our favorite movies with a twist, ignoring canon. Every question is on the table unless the answer is given in the series. We also introduce our own fun theories and possibilities. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Question/Possible Answer on Facebook, and Question_Possible_Answer on Insta. And it's also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the other great podcatchers. So definitely go check that out. I listen to their episodes. It's great, genuinely great show. And I'm going to be making an appearance talking about, I don't want to spoil it. I won't say anything. A very good topic that I'm like really pumped for, because Jesse was like, this is what we're going to talk about. Like, yes, let's do that. I think they recently did Back to the Future, which sounds really interesting. Sounds very interesting. Love Back to the Future. Okay. I think that's all the Patreon plugs. We are running a little short on time, so I want to jump right into our final thoughts and our plan scores. And Chad, if you can, I know we've been rambling a lot. We've been talking a lot about stuff, but you can somehow sum up your feelings on Superman and Lois season 1 and give it a score out of 10. Try to do that now.
All right, my score is 10 out of 10.
Oh, okay. All right.
Loved it. Honestly, I thought it was super good. It's a just great Superman story, honestly. Just all around. It's great Lois and Clark story, actually, with a little bit of Superman in there. Mm-hmm. And it was I need more shows like this with superheroes. Whereas like the main character, where the superhero part is not the main portion of that show. So, I mean, I loved it. Can't wait for season 2 to come out, and so I can binge that too once it comes out, and then maybe we can talk about it again.
I would love to. And see, this is where we urge you all to peer pressure Zach Arnold into watching this show, so that we can come back and do this all over again with him when he's around.
Exactly.
And so at Zach the Voice on all the social media, just go there and just spam all his comment sections, his replies, tweet at him, tell him, watch Superman and Lois. Go do it right now. Because he really needs to watch it. I'm pretty sure he would enjoy it. All right. I think anybody that would watch this show would enjoy it. Mm-hmm. I certainly did. Kenny is in the chat. He says 10 out of 10. So another 10 out of 10. I think I'm going to echo that too. Honestly, I really have no glaring, nothing to complain about this show. It is so great. I've been so excited to watch it every week when it comes out. I'm sad that it's over now. But I'm really looking forward to season 2. I think there is a season 2 that's happening, I think, and hopefully more seasons. And it's just really, I think I had to look up some news. They recently had some kind of news, and if I find it, I'll let you know. But some casting news about the villain for season 2. But I will try to look that up as I'm talking. But basically, like I said, I love this series. It's one of my favorite new series. It completely won me back to this universe, and I was someone who was not. I was done with this. I was like, I'm not bitter about it. I'm not going to go around on Twitter and Facebook and tell everybody how much I hate the Arrowverse. But I was definitely like, okay, I'm done. Arrow's done. I'm just not into this anymore. This show had me skeptical from the trailers because I'm like, it looks good, but that can be deceiving. But nah, I was completely wrong. I'm glad to be wrong.
Yeah. I don't think I've watched any of the trailers for it. Honestly, I was just like, oh, they're making a Superman show with Superman and Lois. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think I heard you talking about it one time on an IPC, and I was like, I'll give it a go, and then watched it and look at it. I love it.
Okay, this is real quick. This is something from Deadline. Deadline exclusively reports that Teen Wolf alum Ian Bohen is set for a multi-episode arc on the upcoming second season of CW's Superman and Lois. Bowen will play Lieutenant Mitch Anderson, the metaphorical new sheriff in town at the DoD. His worldview divides into two types: those you serve and those who serve you. He doesn't like that Superman exists outside of the paradigm and tries to bring the Man of Steel under his authority officially. So now that Lois's father is kind of out, maybe this guy is going to kind of come in and cause some issues. And now the DoD maybe not be getting along with Superman. So that's very interesting. I like that a lot. That's very exciting.
Yeah. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad I remember that while we were talking, because I know that came out like a week or so ago, and we actually got some news. That's great. And season 2 is happening officially. They're doing casting. It's actually happening. It's great. I don't know. I can keep rambling all night. I still say 10 out of 10. It really is great. Watch this show, especially you, Zach Arnold. I know you can hear me. You better watch it before next season. I need to make a deal with Zach because I know there's like a ton of things he wants me to watch. So like, okay, I'll watch V for Vendetta if you watch this show. I know he really wants that to happen. But anyway, that was a great discussion. That was really great. Real quick, let's jump into something we haven't done in quite a long time on the show. At least a few weeks, a few episodes. It's time, guys. Get out your hashtags for hashtag BBQ Watch. And I really felt the need to bring this segment back because there is freaking barbecue in this show.
It's gotta be, obviously.
And Lois Lane gets a freaking rack of ribs. Like, she's that badass. She's like, no, give me the whole thing. Give me the whole thing. She's like standing up to him, like
on the plate
right now. I love that. You know, Lois is just great and standing up to him and doing all that good stuff. And backyard barbecue. I know maybe not technically the same kind of barbecue we're most dealing with, but it's still barbecue, all right?
Still works.
Get good old fashioned barbecue, and it felt neat to mention because I think they're having a barbecue at the end too. Big old party.
Yep, big old party.
All good. It's all good. It's all good. So yeah, we love it when our universes collide. When barbecue collides with superheroes and the stuff we love. So that scene definitely deserves a shout out. But I think I might actually be time for us to close this thing down. As much as I hate to say it.
Unfortunately.
Because this was a lot of fun. Chad, thank you so very much for joining us and talking Superman and Lois. You made my week because I've been itching to talk about this for so long. I didn't have anybody else to talk about it with. I'm so lonely. I love this show and no one else loves it. So yeah, this was like, I genuinely lit up when you said, because we were talking back and forth.
Yeah.
We've been doing so for a few weeks. And you're like, okay, I said, you pick the topic, just do it, and we'll talk about it. I said, I don't care what it is.
Mhm.
It says that's fine, whatever you want. And you came back and said, oh, Superman and Lois. I'm like, what? He wants to talk about my favorite show. I was so excited. And then you're like, well, I can't do it this week, so we're just gonna, we'll just pick something else. I'm like, no, Chad, we're gonna do this. No. I want to talk about Superman Lois. So, yeah,
fair enough.
that was my thought process. But okay, this is the plug part of the show. Feel free to your Twitter, your Facebook, tell people what you're working on, Star Wars culture, all that stuff.
Yeah. You can find me on the interwebs on Twitter, tweeting about dumb things, about whatever I tweet about at right there, Chad BTI. Also, that's my Instagram handle. I don't use Instagram, so you can follow me on Instagram as well. I don't do anything there, so I may take some pictures of some of my Legos and my Funko Pops, but who knows?
That's quality content, in my opinion.
That is my content, but who knows? You can also find me on this YouTube thing at the Star Wars Culture. Go give us a follow there. We talk about Star Wars, obviously. I produce the show and on the show a few times every once in a while when they need a third co-host or need a co-host, and go check out old episodes. We're planning out recording something fun tomorrow, and that'll be on the show at some point because we got
even I don't know what this is.
This is all sneaky stuff.
Yeah,
so.
you're sneaking around behind their backs, and I'm excited.
It's gonna be exciting, and whenever that gets done, it's gonna take a lot of editing because it's a multi-camera kind of a thing that we're doing.
Ooh, but I think I know what this is, and I'm even more excited.
But it's gonna be a fun time. So give us a follow there. Obviously, follow the SWU. I produced that show. So, and then you can see more of Ben. Unfortunately,
unfortunately, I'm not going to disagree.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, one of the two. Don't. And then when Ben puts on the top hat, make sure you mute it or something, because that gets weird.
Quality advice.
I've been considering on just removing him from the studio when he puts on the top hat, but
yeah, people don't know Chad has the power.
I have the powers. But anyway, that's my plugs. All
well, thank you so much, Chad. It's been a pleasure as always. And here, okay, I need to go through our plugs really quick. So you can follow us at the IPC Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can follow Zach, who's not here tonight, at Zach the Voice. And you can follow me personally at Ben Hart with no E. And of course, I work over at Culture Slate. So follow at Culture Slate and follow at the Star Wars Underworld, where me and Chad both are a lot. And patreon.com/IPC podcast. Of course, Podbean, IPCpodcast.podbean.com is where all of our audio episodes are still up at. And you can listen to the episodes. I usually get them edited in around a couple days after we get this here show, but this one is ready to go. As soon as we're done live, you can watch the whole thing. That's the beauty of YouTube. You can get some IPC swag at tpublic.com/user/IPC podcast. And of course, go subscribe right here to Fandom Empire. It's somewhere around here is the subscribe button, because you not only get IPC, you get a bunch of other content. They have so many other shows talking about all kinds of different topics, and I'm sure if you're watching IPC, you'll probably be interested in what they're going to be talking about too. So definitely go check that out. And for IPC, check out iTunes or any other podcatchers. Leave us a rate and review, preferably 5 stars, and helps us out a lot. And that's about it. One other thing. So I started another podcast.
Oh yes.
So Late Night with No E is the thing now.
You mean Litting It with no E?
Latin it with no E.
Yeah, Latin it. Latin it with no E.
It's on all the podcatchers. You can find it on, I think it's anchor.fm/Ben Hart with no E is the official thing. And it's on all the podcatchers. For some reason, they allowed me to do that. So it happens. It's just a show for me to talk and say stuff. And my goal is just Yeah, not that I do enough of that already, but we're going to be talking about maybe some stuff that I don't talk about in Star Wars Underworld or IPC. Talking about with people that I don't normally have on those shows. So, who knows what could happen? I've already had some cool looking. You can actually see them because I do most of the episodes on Facebook Live, but you can also hear them. Lots of great fun. I had one with Connor, if you know, it's the Star Wars Hub Facebook page. I had a long discussion with him. We talked about British food and all kinds of stuff, and toxic Star Wars fandom. It was a great time. But yeah, you can listen to that, and of course they're on the social medias too if you follow me at Ben Harwith No E. But okay, yeah, that's enough. I'm stalled enough. This is done. All right, we've talked about Superman Lois. I'm so happy. Thank you so much, Chad, for coming on.
No problem.
Thanks to our producer Sean for staying up late and helping us out and keeping the show running. But that's it for this episode of the IPC podcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We're bi-weekly now, so come back in 2 weeks and you'll have another episode. But before we leave you, we're just going to leave you with this closing thought. Most powerful is he who controls his own power. We hope to see you in 2 weeks' time for another episode of IPC. But until next time, good night, everyone.
Bye.
Benjamin Hart.
That's me.
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC. IPC.
IPC.
IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you.